Part 1. Logbook, Loss, and the Door. I chose. My name is Marjorie Midge Talbot. I'm 73, cornfield raised outside Lima, Ohio, and what I'm giving you is a straight run of events. No sermons, no violins. I met Rob Talbot at the Hancock County Fair in '68. He smelled like motor oil and spearmint, pitched rings till he won me a mason jar of nickels, and never bragged about what he could fix. He just fixed it. We married the next spring and rented a shotgun duplex with a porch that leaned like it had opinions. Allison came in, 71, clockwork mind, tidy notes, shoes by the door facing the same way. Trevor showed in 79, quiet, pencil behind his ear, sketching engines he couldn't afford. Rob worked presses at the die-cast plant. Swing shifts, steel toes, calluses like walnut shells. By 88, he was shift lead, extra dollar, double risk. We stretched for a cape on Keeling Avenue. He sistered a joist under the step. I ran curtains through the old Singer. Sundays were church, a roast, and euchre at the table. Not fancy, but punctual. By 93, Allison had a partial scholarship at Bowling Green. Trevor, 14, started shadowing older boys behind the laundromat. Hoodies, secondhand swagger. Teachers said he stared past windows. Rob tried fishing trips, socket sets, small talks about pride and payday. Some weekends landed. Others snapped the line. April 11th, 1995. Coffee at 5:10. Clean shirt ironed. Note tucked in Rob's lunch. Pot roast tonight. At 2:14 p.m., HR read from a laminate. Equipment failure, chest impact, County General. I'm sorry. I signed 3 forms under a buzzing tube light and walked out with a pamphlet I didn't open. We did the ritual. Casseroles, folding chairs, verses, a wall clock that ticked too loud. The burial ended with shovels standing like sentries. Back at the house, people ate ham sandwiches because hands need something to do. I slipped down the hall to breathe. When I cracked the bathroom door, Trevor stepped in with 4 older boys I recognized by posture and haircut. No shouting. One posted at the hall. Papers on the tank. Withdrawal slips. A dime store power of attorney. They pressed for signatures and access. Trevor spoke lines he'd learned from men who needed a villain and chose women. I signed minimum, wrong on purpose, dates off, middle initial swapped, a habit Rob taught for nosy salesmen. They left with keys, the coffee tin cash, and a threat shaped like advice. That's enough detail. I rinsed the tile, counted to 20, and rejoined the living room with its sympathy plates. Claire, no, Allison, names stay straight, watched my face, didn't ask, just put a cardigan on my shoulders and steered talk toward weather. Next morning, Trevor ate toast like any stranger renting a room. Allie, I said into the Sunoco payphone, 11:40 bus, meet me. I waited for the boys to clear out, packed 1 suitcase, birth certificates, mortgage file, 2 photographs, Rob's bone-handled pocket knife, my mother's locket, a spiral with bill due dates underlined. On the kitchen table, I left a note. Rent's due tomorrow. I won't be paying. Keys under the flower bin. Mom. I slid the keys where I said, and didn't look at the rosebush Rob babied through frost. 5 hours south by bus. Allison met me in a thrifted pea coat, jaw set, eyes kind. Her student apartment was narrow, clean, with a deadbolt that seated like a promise. That night, I slept in shoes. We wrote a list on a legal pad and moved down it like a blueprint. 1. Clinic. Document injuries, photographs, dates. 2. Bank. Freeze accounts. New debit at a branch Trevor didn't know existed. Change pins. Fraud alert. 3. Work. Anything with a counter and a till. 4. Paper. credit report, lock-on files, copies of copies. 5. Counselor, whether I liked it or not. I didn't. Allison booked it anyway. Dr. Rhodes on the 6th floor kept real plants in quiet pens. Session 1. Names, dates, surfaces. Session 3. Exit audit. What I grabbed, what I left, what I'd do if door frames started to feel small again. Session 6. The bathroom, told in the fewest necessary words. She said, "We proceed stepwise. That's how you rebuild a bulky carb. Lay parts out on a towel. Clean, reassemble, test, adjust, repeat." Work landed at a Notions counter on Dorr Street. I learned the receipt printer's moods and which customers needed thread numbers and which needed someone to square their bag and send them on. Nights, Allison highlighted case law. I hemmed church pants for cash. The retired letter carrier upstairs fixed our trap for free and started sliding clipped coupons under the mat. Trades, not speeches. 2 weeks in, Mrs. Denton from Keeling Avenue found Allison's number. "Lights off. Boys in and out," she said. I told her I wasn't coming back. "Have the landlord change locks. Bill my daughter." Then I sat still and let the decision settle like silt in a jar. Summer burned through. Bruises went yellow, then gone. The jump at a hard knock stuck around. Allison graduated in Navy. I looped Rob's tie around my wrist like a band. A year later, she married a decent man named Mark, who could rebuild a caliper without narrating it. We moved into their starter ranch. Maple tree, short driveway, a porch light that obeyed the switch. News of Trevor arrived sideways. Rob's brother took him, then didn't. In '99, someone spotted his name on the courthouse corkboard. In 2001, he drew 10 upstate for an armed robbery that went bad. I memorized his doc number because mothers file numbers they hate. I wrote a letter I never mailed. I built a life that ran on timetables, not wishes. Drawer 1, proof. IDs, notarized copies, orders, stamps. Drawer 2, money, new accounts at a branch no one knew, passwords on paper only I could find. Drawer 3, exit, bus schedule, locksmith, shelter list, pharmacy with my meds. Tuesdays I sat at the legal clinic front desk Allison helped start. I photocopied IDs, kept pens in a jar, poured water for shaky hands, and pointed to the line where their signature belonged. You'd be shocked how far a working copier and a calm voice will move a person down the road. Then the phone game started. A navy blazer charmer hovered by our brochures asking about transition paperwork. Flag pin, portable printer, pre-filled blanks. New target. Widows and tired men on second mortgages. We ran his name through the state site. Nothing licensed. We set a meet at the credit union under cameras and a notary. Our tenant council rep and a retired bus driver sat as witnesses. The pitchman, called himself Braden, laid out a temporary stewardship and a transfer on death deed. I slid him our do not convey notice and dialed the AG elder fraud line. The manager tilted the lobby camera. A deputy walked him to a side room. In his case, forged seals, witness lines already inked, a route sheet labeled Q1 backlog, not a fluke, inventory. We kept doing that, moving sharks into bright water, handing folks steps, stacking affidavits like sandbags. Not revenge, process. Torque applied steady. In 2010, the chaplain called from upstate. Yard fight, a knife, my son gone behind wire. He asked about next of kin instructions. I asked for 1 white carnation at whatever service they could manage. The next day, a letter arrived in Trevor's hand. Mailed before the fight. Half a page, 3 words that mattered. I was wrong. I filed it beside the photo of a boy on a red trike and closed the lid. This is the first entry. The rest is how you keep moving. Papers, allies, safe rooms, and a plan that doesn't rely on anyone else deciding to be better. If you're looking for uplift, here's what I can promise. Clean exits beat tidy endings. If a stranger waves urgency and contracts, relocate the conversation to a bank desk with cameras. If a door has no lock, install one. If someone removes it, change addresses. If a boy starts parroting poison, take the keys and call the counselor before you call your sister. When the day tilts, put on your shoes, gather your folder, make the necessary move, then the next. Rob used to say, "Torque it steady, Midge. Quick snaps bolts." He meant wrenches. It works for everything. Part 2. Receipts, stings, and a door. I don't do quests. I do lists. After the chaplain's call and that half page from Trevor, I turned to the thing I could still torque. Systems that prey on the tired. The first Tuesday in March, a woman in a diner uniform slid into the clinic chair with a man behind her carrying a briefcase that clicked like a trap. He introduced himself as Mr. Cole from Beneficial Transitions. Flag pin again, new face. He aimed her at a relief deed for back taxes that would give him her house for a holding period. I smiled, handed her our green folder, and moved the meat to the credit union. Cameras, a notary, witnesses who can tell a straight line from a curve. Cole arrived with a portable printer and witness lines already inked. I set our "Do not convey without independent counsel" notice on the desk. He tried to slide the deed under it. I dialed the AG's elder fraud line and gave the code. 2 minutes later, the branch manager walked over like a man asking about interest rates. He wasn't. A deputy guided Cole to the mortgage consultation room. In the briefcase, rubber stamps with county seals, a fake notary log, and a spreadsheet titled APR targets. The diner lady left with water, a photocopy packet, and her house. That night I pulled Rob's old tackle box down. Not for hooks, for labels. Drawer by drawer, I built a sting kit. Pre-printed witnesses, intake checklist, portable scanner, spare readers for old folks' glasses, a 1-page script that makes people breathe. We used it twice more before Easter and sent 3 briefcases to evidence. Process. Torque. April. I walked past a notice board at County Records and saw a name I hadn't said out loud in 15 years. Nathan K. Sully, permit expediter. Snake tattoo peeking past a cuff in the photograph on a flyer. He'd been in my bathroom the day my life cracked. Blood got loud in my ears. My hands did not shake. I took the flyer, wrote a question mark over licensed, and asked the clerk for his filings. None. He was greasing skids for a slumlord, taking cash for walked inspections in the South End. I didn't call Allison. I walked to the Union Hall. The plant where Rob died changed owners twice, buried records once. But a retired steward named Myron still kept a key to a storage locker that smelled like mice and paper. In a banker's box labeled 95 incidents, we found copies of maintenance logs. Red ink, line 3, emergency stop intermittently fails, tagged out pending parts. Black ink, newer, cleared for production. Same date, same shift. Rob's shift. Myron's eyes went flat. They pushed the line dirty. He wanted a press conference. I wanted proof under a clerk's stamp. We made copies and walked them to the county solicitor's intake window. Stamped and scanned, the clerk said. Click, Were. That sound is better than prayer. 2 days later, Sully the expediter drifted into the clinic lobby with a contractor, selling same-day permits and grandfathered exits for cash. I put on my cardigan, set out cups, and asked if he preferred the credit union or city services. He picked the credit union. Good. Our notary likes his coffee strong and his cameras centered. Sully swaggered in late with a clipboard and the same snake up his wrist. I had 2 witnesses already seated, the diner lady, steadier now, and a bus driver with Sunday shoes. Sully's forms were sloppy. Wrong letterhead, wrong seal. I held them at an angle so the camera saw. The notary asked, "What's your bond number?" Sully tossed a number like a coin. The manager drifted closer. I dialed a different code. Permits, not deeds. City services sent 2 inspectors who look like accountants until they aren't. They checked the seal with a loop, asked about the bond again, then asked him to step into the small room with the frosted glass. He tried to leave. The deputy met him at the hinge. End of swagger. I walked outside and breathed once, then twice. No speeches, no shaking, just air I owed myself. While that moved through channels, Myron called. The new owner's lawyer offered a legacy stipend if we stopped asking for the maintenance logs. He said it like a favor. Myron laughed into the receiver and handed it to me. I asked for the stipend in writing, the logs certified, and the incident file referred to the state. Or, I said, we staple your offer to a press packet. There was a long quiet. Then he said he'd circulate internally. Translate. They'd found the leverage. We didn't want news vans. We wanted the form with the state letterhead that says, violation substantiated. The stipend came anyway, small but real. Myron sent every dollar to the widow's fund. That felt like turning a seized bolt a quarter turn more. Summer again. Allison had 2 cases set for trial and 2 kids set for swim lessons. Mark built a gate for the backyard. I kept Tuesdays and added Thursdays at the tenant clinic because evictions were coming like July storms. We started asking landlords for ledgers before court. Half couldn't count. A few tried to yell. I slid cold water across the desk and pointed to the math. Numbers don't care about volume. One afternoon, a boy I didn't know knocked on our ranch door. 16, maybe 17, shoulders trying to be wider than they were. He held a dented helmet and a letter. "You Midge Talbot?" he asked, shifting from foot to foot. "I think I'm supposed to give you this." The envelope was addressed in Trevor's hand. Not the apology, another. The stamp was old. The postmark was new. I read it at the kitchen table, maple shadow creeping across the formica. Trevor had written it in '09 and given it to a cellmate, who'd mailed it to his aunt, who'd stuffed it in a drawer and finally passed it to this kid, her neighbor's boy, to deliver because you were on his way. Ohio is small that way. The letter wasn't poetry. It was a list. Names of the 4 in my hallway that day. 2 dead, 1 in Illinois, 1, the snake, back home running paper for slumlords. A line at the bottom, "If you ever go looking, take company to the bank lobby." I didn't go looking. He'd already walked into our light. The city charged Sully with forgery and acting as an unlicensed expediter. He took a plea and gave up 3 landlords and a code inspector with a gambling problem. The inspector's name matched the signature on the cleared for production line in Rob's file. Different department, same rot. The state's letter arrived in September. Safety violation sustained, penalty assessed, remedial training required. No one says sorry on letterhead. They do say assessed. It's a colder word. It still moves money. I took June to the library that afternoon and taught her to use the copier. "Why would I ever need this?" she asked. "You will," I said. "You'll need proof more than once." The diner lady brought a pie to the clinic and rolled her eyes when I tried to refuse it. "You bought me time," she said. "Eat the pie." We did. The bus driver fixed our bulletin board like it was a route map. Myron sent me a copy of the state letter for my file. I slid it under proof, behind our marriage license and the kids' birth certificates. Paper doesn't love anyone, but it will stand up for you if you stack it right. That night, I sat on the porch and sharpened pencils. Not meditating, prepping. We had 3 more stings scheduled. A training at the church basement about deeds and leases, and a meeting with the bank manager about keeping the lobby camera angled where it should be. Revenge is a loud word. Mine sounds like a copier, a notary stamp, a chair pulled out for a stranger, a deputy's polite, "Right this way." I don't forgive glue that fails. I replace it. I don't chase ghosts. I tag facts and hand them to people with badges and stamps. And when some kid shows up at my door with a letter that hurt to read and helped anyway, I pour him lemonade, send him off with 2 granola bars, and write one more name on the list under handled. Torque it steady. Then steady again. Part 3. Pressure tests and crossed wires. The city letters did their pinprick work, fines here, audits there, but pressure pushes back. 2 weeks after Sully pled out, a box truck idled at the curb outside our ranch at 9 p.m. 2 men in high-vis vests stepped down like they owned the easement. Clipboard, bolt cutters, order to disconnect. Wrong seal, wrong truck number, right hour to rattle an old woman. I flicked on the porch light, put on my canvas jacket, and walked out with June at my shoulder, holding a phone like a camera crew. "We'll need a meter read, and your crew chief's bond." I said it flat. They laughed. I pointed at the little brass disc I'd epoxied to the siding. Private lens, red LED blinking. The taller one barked at the driver. The driver stared at the lens and weighed his options. I dialed the utility number painted on their door. "That truck," the dispatcher said. "Ours are all GPS. That one isn't." I read the plate. She read me back a call number. Patrol rolled up quiet. The vests tried to melt into the cab. Didn't. They weren't utility. They were landlord muscle trying to make a tenant break a lease down the block by coincidental outage. They picked my house to stage because it has a straight shot from the curb and no fence. Bad choice. The officer took statements. The neighbor's porch cam took the rest. We didn't cheer. We printed. I drove the packet to city services at 8:05 a.m. and dropped it on the investigator's desk with a note. Same faces showed at the credit union last month. He stapled the note and said, "Got it." That's the sound I like. Paper joining paper. At the tenant clinic, we upped our kit. Laminated, verify first cards, for superintendents, a 1-page flow for utility fraud, a script that starts with, "We're recording, state your name." We ran the church basement training twice and made deacons into ushers with clipboards. You can shame a thief, or you can make their day too expensive. I pick expensive. At home, family work. Caleb brought home a classmate spouting garbage about keeping women in line, like he was reading off a live stream. I didn't give a speech. I handed him a torque wrench and a stripped hinge from the hall closet. Set it to 25, I said. He twisted too fast, skinned his knuckles, hissed. I showed him slow pressure. Feel the give. Don't force it. Same with people, I said. Push fast, and you break threads you can't replace. He looked at the hinge, not me, and nodded like the information had a place to live. Mid-June, the AG's office asked if I'd testify in a tidy case named State vs. Halvern. Properties et al. False deeds, forged notaries, expedited permits from nowhere. They didn't want grief stories. They wanted dates, rooms, angles of cameras, who poured water, who signed, who tried to leave. My kind of talk. Courtroom day. Suit that still fit. Folder labeled proof with tabs like a recipe box. The defense tried charm, then fog. I stuck to coordinates. Credit Union, Maine, desk 3, 10:12 a.m. Mr. Braden's pen was a Pelican loaded with blue-black. He clicked it twice when asked about his bond. The gallery chuckled. The judge didn't. When counsel suggested I'd orchestrated events, I said, "We moved meetings to public counters with cameras. If that's orchestration, add strings." The judge hid a smile. Facts don't need jokes, but sometimes they carry. Verdicts landed in August. Probation for 1, fines for 2, jail for the ringleader who couldn't stop talking. City Services posted a memo. All deeds in our county now require a cooling-off review if signed outside counsel's office. Small change. Not cosmetic. The union piece took longer. The state's penalty against the plant drew a line under Rob's file. Thin, official. Myron and I met in the hall where they keep coffee that tastes like cardboard and decided what to do with the stipend no one asked for. We built the Talbot binder. Orange cases at 3 shifts entrances, laminated maintenance forms, a pocket camera, a 1-page tag-out checklist, and a blue card with the state complaint number. We set them on the table with donuts and said nothing. You'd be amazed how many men photograph a form if a woman who looks like someone's aunt wheels the card in and keeps her mouth shut. Trevor's letter kept nagging. Not the names. Those were handled. The last line, bank lobby, rode with me. It's the only place the boy and I ever met clean. I didn't light a candle. I replaced the porch bulb with a brighter one and moved on. September brought a new trick. Mobile notaries meeting folks in parking lots to expedite beneficiary forms. Fancy van, laser printer, stolen identities. They targeted the hospital at discharge time. We countered with a folding table, a sign that read, "Ask before you sign," and 2 chairs under the ambulance bay light. I brewed coffee strong enough to scald bad ideas. A nurse pointed us to families with a glazed look. We aimed them at the hospital's real notary behind glass. The van parked once across the street. The driver saw the sign and rolled on. Sunlight chases moths. One night, walking to my car after a Thursday shift, I heard the scuff of cheap boots. "You think you're cleaning the world?" a voice asked from shadow. "I think I'm moving paperwork where it belongs," I said. He stepped close enough I saw the pock marks. "You made me lose a truck." "No," I said, unlocking the door. "Lying made you lose a truck. Go buy a broom." He didn't swing. He expected fear. I offered boredom. He slunk off. I wrote his face down before I forgot it and handed the note to the deputy at the clinic next morning. Names chase faces. Faces chase charges. I keep the chain tight. Allison worried I took too much on. She wasn't wrong. I promised to skip dark parking lots, and actually did. We split roles. She took court. I took counters. Mark added motion lights and a camera that emails me a picture when a moth flaps. Annoying. Effective. Late fall, the county mailed a letter I read twice. The inspector tied to Rob's cleared tag resigned to pursue other opportunities. Translation: the door shut behind him. Myron called. "We ever gonna say it out loud?" he asked. "No," I said. "We're gonna keep the binders full and the cameras charged." He laughed like a man who still misses his friends and sent me a photo of a guy on night shift holding the blue card like a medal. That same week, the diner lady dropped off a pie again. Apple, heavy on cinnamon. "The light stayed on," she said simply. I wrote "handled" on a yellow pad and slid it under the phone. I don't count wins, but I do mark completions. Caleb finished the hall hinge without snapping threads. June beat me at cribbage 2 nights running. The clinic copier jammed and I cleared it with a credit card and a breath. Same as always. The porch light hummed. The maples went red. People say revenge like it's a flame. Mine is a ledger. I don't burn. I balance. Names to outcomes. Scams to charges. Scares to brighter bulbs. And when the ledger evens, I bake a pan of cornbread, oil the scissors, and show up on Tuesday with pens that don't skip. Torque it steady. When the world pushes, angle your wrench, reset your stance, and apply pressure again. Part 4. False flags and family lines. Autumn sharpened the air and the schemes. The week after the utility stunt, flyers bloomed on telephone poles. Free home repairs. Federal disaster. Grant. Wrong seal, right fear. They parked a van by the church, wore polos with stitched eagles, and pitched inspection fees refundable upon award. Refunds never existed. I didn't debate. I set a card table under the same poles with a hand-painted sign. Grants aren't cash. They're paper. Allison brought a milk crate of legit forms. Mark hauled thermoses. Folks queued. When the van crew drifted over, I slid them a copy of the state solicitation rules and asked for their DUNS number. They tried charm. I asked for a SAM registration. They tried volume. The deacon turned on the steeple cam. They tried leaving. County Consumer Affairs met them in the lot. One clipboard hit asphalt. Pages skittered like roaches. We swept, sorted, mailed the pile to the investigator with a note. Same van, changed magnets twice. Torque steady. Homefront. Caleb's sophomore brain got hijacked by a streamer with a black flag logo who sells t-shirts and contempt. I did not sermonize. I replaced his bus pass with a day on job sites. We went to Mrs. Klein's duplex, where a slumlord had left a furnace venting into a closet. Caleb held the CO meter, while a union tech ran new pipe. Men who talk loud aren't men, the tech said, tightening a union with 2 fingers. Men make drafts safe. On the way back, we stopped at the high school shop. The instructor, Ms. Manu, handed Caleb a welder's mask and a rusted bracket. "Build better," she said. Sparks bloomed. He forgot the flag boy for a minute. That's all a minute needs. Clinic side, Halvern's lawyer cousin filed a nuisance suit against Allison for interfering with commerce. Cute try. Slap still slaps back in our state. I drafted a timeline with bulletproof timestamps. Dates, desks, badge numbers, Allison stapled statutes. We posted a court watch sign up. The gallery filled with retirees, a barber, 2 nurses, and a bus driver named Ed, who brings butterscotch in a zip bag. The judge glanced at the crowd, read our brief, and dismissed with fees. Halvern's cousin packed his shiny pen like it was evidence of something. It was of overbilling. The plant thread tugged again when Myron called. You ever meet Kessler? He asked. The inspector who had waived Rob's lockout without eyes on the floor. He'd resurfaced as industrial safety consultant, bidding on city contracts. The name tasted like tin. I pulled every public minute the council kept. Attendance, conflict forms, the kind of fine print that naps men. We found 2 lunches with a procurement officer and a donation logged wrong. Not a smoking gun, a smoldering rag. I filed a bid protest with citations neat enough to read from space. The clerk stamped it 9:03 a.m. I stayed for public comment. City buys safety, I said. Buy from people who know a tag means hands off, not good enough. Kessler sat 3 rows back in a new suit. He recognized me and tried a tight smile. I mailed him nothing. I mailed the ethics board everything. 2 weeks later, the city yanked his pre-qual pending review. He posted a statement about political vendettas. I made stew and labeled another folder. Kessler, do not trust. Even if the door reopens, a label saves steps. Scammers pivoted to probate. A mailer hit half the block. Beneficiary update needed. With a bank's logo lifted pencil clean, the hotline routed to a room full of day renters harvesting account numbers. We staged at the credit union with the branch manager and a stamp that says, "Fraudulent mailer. Do not comply." In thick red. People brought envelopes like dead mice. We stamped, scanned, and filed a postal complaint stack high enough to chalk a tire. The postal inspector, hat sharp, shook my hand like we'd rebuilt a bridge. Different uniform. Same satisfaction. Family isn't all paper. June came home pale. A boy in her class had cornered a friend behind the band room and grabbed where he had no right. The administrators wrote a letter about boundary education. I wrote an email about assault and caprice, Title IX, and CC'd 3 names that make vice principals sit up. June's friend filed. We walked her to the counselor and then to Ms. Manu, who keeps a drawer of granola bars and the kind of stare that ends nonsense. The boys' parents tried boys will be boys. The district tried policy. I brought dates. The board moved faster than it wanted, faster than the boy expected. That night, I took June to the garage. We hung her bike on the hook and tightened a chain, watching the teeth climb and seat. Feel that? I said. Right pressure keeps the line true. Too much and you skip, too little and you slip. She grinned with grease on her cheek. Not a metaphor to her. A bike that wouldn't eat her calf on a hill. Winter bit. We shifted from porches to lobbies, banks, hospitals, the license branch. I learned the janitor's schedule and the guard's coffee order. The grifters learned mine and kept missing me by 10 minutes. One, a thin man who called himself Facilitator Ray, left a voicemail promising to even accounts. I kept his message forever, in case forever needed evidence. January. The council ethics report printed. Kessler barred 2 years from city work. No confession, no fireworks. A paragraph with teeth. I clipped it, taped it on the inside of the Talbot binder like a hunter's tag. Myron texted 3 fist emojis, modern hieroglyphs for sa. We got one. Then a curveball. The die-cast plant announced automation upgrades on the line where Rob once stood. Good news wrapped around bad. Fewer hands, more speed. I drove out at dusk, parked by the fence, and watched the new arms move like mantises. A kid in a hard hat waved. I waved back. You worked here? He asked. I kept someone who did, I answered. We talked tag-outs and how to say no without getting canned. I left him a blue card with the complaint number and a single rule. If you can't stop the thing that can kill you, step away. On the way home, I stopped at the cemetery. Snow crust, quiet road, a row of stones that lean in wind. I brushed Rob's name with a mitten. They're still trying to hurry everything, I told him. We're still slowing them down. No mystic answer, just the crack of ice and the distant thump of a plow. Good enough? Back in town, Allison slid an envelope across the table. Another elder fraud sting? She asked. Not this time. It was from the school board. June had won a vocational grant for a semester at the tech center. Welding and CAD. She whooped. Caleb clapped. Mark high-fived air like he'd caught a ball. I cut the cake, handed out slices, and stuck the letter on the fridge with a magnet that reads, "Measure twice." The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and victory. We end days the way we start them. Check locks, prep folders, keep a list by the phone. If fear knocks, I answer with light and a form. If bravado shows, I hand it a wrench. If the city forgets who it works for, I remind it with citations and a chair in the front row. People want a showdown. What we run is maintenance. Replace the stripped screw. Log the serial. Get the badge number. Put meetings where the camera sees. Revenge? That's the ledger balanced. The scammer out of gas. The kid unhooked from a poison voice. The inspector without a contract. That's plenty heat for me. Torque it steady. New tricks tomorrow. New tools ready tonight. Part 5. The Wrench Man. The past walked back into town wearing a company windbreaker and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He ran a pop-up roofing outfit, yard signs overnight, storm damage assessments at dawn. I knew him from posture before memory caught up. The kid who once tapped a wrench against his palm outside my bathroom door. Now 30-something with a clipboard. New name on his truck, Ryder Roofing, but the scar by his ear hadn't rebranded. I didn't freeze. I wrote the plate, snapped the magnet sign, and texted Allison. Wrench boy is back, consumer fraud. Possible extortion angles. She called the AG hotline. I pulled the Talbot binder and a fresh spiral. We worked 2 tracks. Keep neighbors safe, build a file neat enough for court. He knocked on Mrs. Ortega's, pushed Hail Talk, then the fast sign tablet. I stepped onto her porch with lemonade like a nosy ant. Funny, I said. Your license number starts with 2 letters our state doesn't use. He said, corporate office is out of state. I said, great. Then your home improvement bond is too. Show it. He pivoted to charm. I pointed to the door camera. He pivoted to threat. Roofs fail in storms. I smiled. Only the lazy ones. He left a flyer. I weighed it in my hand like a bad coin, then drove to the permit desk. The clerk, a woman who files with the precision of a drill press, confirmed no permits pulled by Ryder this month. I left with a certified letter form and 3 complaint brochures in Spanish for Mrs. Ortega's block. That afternoon, Mark and I planted, no soliciting, we verify placards up and down the street like stakes in soft ground. Day 2, the wrench man signed a widow 3 streets over for a temporary cover at triple rate. He parked his crew, unfurled tarps, then asked for cash, to release materials. Classic front load. I called the credit union manager who runs Saturdays like triage. We met the widow at her branch desk under cameras. When he tried to collect, he found me, the manager, and a notary. He tried jokes. The manager hit record on the desk phone. He tried urgency. I slid him a receipt book and asked for a state sales tax number. He hissed a name I hadn't heard in 15 years. Mine, but bent. That told me he remembered exactly who I was.
We needed one clean case for prosecutors. I volunteered mine.
I dialed his hotline from a throwaway, said Northside Ranch, Windlift on the Ridge. He booked a free inspection and arrived with a drone that looked expensive and a ladder that didn't. While he played pilot, I counted. Missing ladder foot. No fall arrest. No ridge anchor. Men who fake paperwork, fake harnesses too. He came down with a pitch. Sign now, insurance later. Price adjustable. I signed Satch, Midge Talbot. On a blank line, then drew a diagonal through every unused space, dated the margins, and wrote, Subject to verification. The way Dr. Rhodes taught me to fence a page. He pocketed the copy. I photographed mine beside a ruler. We moved to step 2. Allison prepped a civil TRO. The postal inspector prepped a mail fraud packet. The city readied a stop work order for no permit activity. All those tools required a single on-tape misrepresentation. We got it 10 minutes later when he texted a fake insurer authorization, PDF, with a logo cut and pasted so bad my grandson could spot the aliasing. I saved, printed, and walked it to the credit union so their printer would timestamp the footer. Little things win big later. His crew rolled up Monday. I set 2 folding chairs on my lawn and poured coffee for the code officer and the state labor inspector. The wrenchman hopped from his truck, saw the badges, and tried the oldest move in America. Keep hammering. Pretend not to notice. The inspector tapped the ladder foot with her boot. It slid like a skate. Off the roof, she said. He argued. She pointed to her own body cam. He came down. The code officer wrote red on white. The labor inspector wrote yellow on carbon. Allison's runner served the TRO while the man held his clipboard like a shield. The postal inspector's partner arrived with a slim folder and a cooler voice. Asked about the mailers, asked about the LLC that didn't exist, asked him to sit in his truck and produce bond papers. He shut the door, stared at his wheel, and made a phone call I'm sure he regrets. 2 cruisers ghosted in like a weather change. I didn't gloat. I stacked copies, initialed margins, and passed the widow a list of licensed companies with good standing and plain receipts. You decide, in daylight, I told her. Nobody rushes you on your own porch. That evening, Caleb came home and flipped the news on his phone. Unlicensed roofing operation shut down. Mail fraud. Probe ongoing. The video caught my porch chairs in the corner, tops of 2 thermoses, and the sign on my mailbox. Measure twice. That him? Caleb asked. That was him, I said, and felt the old tile under my feet for a second. Then the present come back like a light flicked on. The past can knock. It doesn't get in. The story didn't end with handcuffs and a perfect bow. It hardly ever does. He lawyered up, posted a statement about paperwork misunderstandings, and his magnets disappeared off trucks overnight. Fine. We kept going. Allison filed our affidavits. The city mailed restitution forms. The postal inspector subpoenaed the print shop that ran his flyers. That's not revenge. That's maintenance on a Civic engine that rattles if you ignore it. I boxed the case file, tabbed, dated, spare copies of everything, and slid it into the Talbot binder behind Kessler. New tab, Ryder. Mark grilled pork chops. June set the table with a tape measure still hanging from her belt loop. Caleb asked if I'd teach him how to write a complaint that gets read. Start with dates, I said, handing him a pen. Then verbs. Then the rule they broke. No adjectives. Before bed, I walked the block. Porch lights blinked. Placards held. On Mrs. Ortega's stoop, A brand new permit sat taped inside a clear sleeve. Licensed outfit on the way. Price straight and written. Torque it steady. One more bolt snugged. Tomorrow, a new rattle to chase. Part 6. The ledger job. The rattle this time wasn't on a roof. It lived in a ledger. Mrs. Green from 2 doors down, 4'9", spine like rebar, showed up with a pink final notice flapping in her hand. They added a maintenance premium, she said. $300 a month for rapid response pest mitigation. I've had one ant in 6 years, and I killed him myself. I asked to see her lease. The addendum was stapled crooked. Font didn't match. Signature block photocopied 3 times. Her landlord, a slick man named Delroy Pike, had bought 3 bungalows on our block with a hard money loan and a smile. He liked to tell widows about market corrections and efficiencies. I like paper. Paper doesn't bluff. We started quiet. I photocopied everything and built a timeline. Purchase date, recorded mortgage, original leases, the day the premium appeared. Allison pulled the county docket. I pulled the recorder site. Delroy had filed a lien against Mrs. Green for arrears, then printed the pink notices to scare her into a stipulation. Classic squeeze. Raise the bill, brand the debtor, take the deed. Before a fight, you test the fence. I called the pest control company named on the invoice. We don't service that block, the owner said. Gave an estimate once, never got the job. He emailed me the estimate. Different logo, different LLC. Delroy had borrowed a letterhead and invented a service. I printed the email and headed to the recorder's office. The clerk with the drill press precision, same one from the roofing mess, let me inspect the lien. Witness lines, blank, notary seal, a stamp bought online, number format wrong for our state. I asked for a certified copy. She slid it across, eyebrows up. You bringing this back with friends? Only the kind with bar cards, I said. We called a meeting at the credit union. 2 tenants, 1 retired bus driver, Allison, me. Under the cameras, we wrote 3 letters: a demand for verification under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, a notice disputing the debt, and a rent into escrow request to municipal court. Legal, boring, lethal. Mrs. Green's voice shook when she signed. My hand was steady for both of us. Delroy arrived hot. He pounded on Mrs. Green's screen door, said words about eviction today. I stepped onto the porch with a manila envelope and a notary from church who smells like copier toner. You'll take future rent at the court cashier, I told him. He laughed, big and showy, until I held up the certified lien copy and the pest company email. The laugh died. Clerical mix-up, he said. We'll straighten it out Monday. It was Thursday. We'll see you Friday, I said, and closed the door gently. Friday morning, 8:30, we took seats in Municipal E, landlord-tenant cattle call. Delroy swaggered in with a briefcase and a tie that screamed consultation, not courtroom. He didn't recognize the judge, a former legal aid barracuda with a soft voice and a habit of reading every line before she spoke. Delroy named an amount. We named the lease. He mentioned pest mitigation. I slid the letter from the pest company. He waved the lien. Allison pointed at the notary number like a sniper calling wind. The judge looked over her glasses. Mr. Pike, is this your notary? He hemmed. She asked the clerk to fetch the notary register. The number belonged to a woman who died in 2011. Everything slowed, which is how justice feels when it's actually working. The judge put rent in escrow, enjoined the premium, set a show cause on the lien,
and referred the notary issue to appropriate authorities. Delroy's swagger melted into a damp collar. He asked for a continuance. He got a deadline. Back on the block, Delroy tried a different play. Intimidation by contractor. Two men in safety vests rolled a dumpster to Mrs. Green's curb. Renovation, they said.
You can't renovate what you don't have possession of, I said, and dialed code enforcement. The officer who likes my coffee showed up with a clipboard. Permit? Blank looks. He tagged the dumpster, and the crew drove off with their tailgate rattling. Delroy pivoted to charm, dropped by with cupcakes and a new lease, where the premium magically vanished, but the term doubled and a confession of judgment hid in paragraph 9. Mrs. Green looked at me. I nodded at the shredder. She fed the paper in like spaghetti. Good cupcakes, though, she said, mouth straight as a chalk line. We weren't done. Allison filed a motion to strike the lien and a complaint with the AG's consumer unit. I filed small claims on behalf of Mrs. Green for the bogus fees already paid. We served Delroy at the credit union desk again. Easy to verify ID when the teller already knows his driver's license number. He complained about vigilantes. I poured him a plastic cup of water and suggested he bring a real notary next time. The show cause hearing landed hard. The judge asked 2 questions. Who notarized this? And where is your bond? Delroy talked about being a small businessman. The judge talked about falsification, record tampering, and the part of the code that makes liens that lie go poof. She ordered the recorder to release it, referred the notary stamp to the prosecutor, and tacked on attorney fees that made Delroy stare at the floor tiles like they'd changed color. Outside, Mrs. Green hugged her folder. You think he'll stop? He'll move 3 blocks over and try again, I said. We'll be there first. We knocked doors. We found 2 more addenda with the crooked staple and the photocopied block. We hosted a Saturday clinic at the church hall. Rent escrows, lease audits, certified letters, phone scripts. June ran the copier like a drum line. Caleb stamped envelopes and learned what service by mail means. Mark stood by the coffee urn and told people where to line up for the cashier counter downtown. No speeches. Steps. Delroy's LLC dissolved within a month. A new one sprouted with a different mascot. We stapled our flyer to telephone poles. Verify before you sign. With a list of free lookups and the clerk's number. The block felt taller somehow. Locks rekeyed, numbers labeled, neighbors practiced at asking, "Is there a permit?" like they were born saying it. That night I filed the whole packet. Tabs, dates, 1 cupcake wrapper taped to the back with a note. Good frosting, bad paper. I slid it behind. Rider and ahead of next, because there's always a next. Later on the porch, Allison asked if any of this felt like revenge. No, I said. It's torque. You don't rage at a bolt. You lean till it stops wobbling. She laughed, tired and pleased. Down the street, Mrs. Green's porch light clicked on. 3 flashes, the signal we'd agreed on for "I'm fine." I flashed back twice. We keep it boring. That's how you win. Part 7. Closing the loop. They served me a subpoena with my Tuesday coffee. Not dramatic, just a cream-colored envelope at the clinic desk. The state wanted testimony in People v. Pike et al. The case that grew out of our crooked staple fiasco. Allison read it, smiled without showing teeth, and said, "You'll be fine. Tell it straight. Bring your folders." Courtroom 3 smelled like varnish and paper.
Delroy wore a sober tie and a haircut he'd borrowed for the day. 2 co-defendants sat beside him. Same shoes, new LLCs. The prosecutor was lean and polite, the kind who sets a metronome and lets fools talk themselves off rhythm. I swore in, opened, Ryder, and walked the judge through what we did. Pink notices, fake pest invoice, notary mismatch, rent to escrow. No speeches, just dates, signatures, and the phone number for the dead notary whose stamp they'd used. Delroy's lawyer tried charm. Mrs.
Talbot, isn't it possible you misread a clerical? I slid the pest company email toward him with a fresh certified stamp. The judge pinched the bridge of her nose, then set trial dates that sounded like a train schedule and ordered restitution into the escrow account by Friday. Outside, Delroy muttered about paper terrorists. I told him paper keeps roofs on and let the deputy walk him to the elevator. On the way home, the bus station called to me like a whistle. I'd learned long ago that terminals tell you what neighborhoods won't. Near Gate 6, a woman my age sat with a dented suitcase and a split lip she tried to hide with a scarf. She watched the arrivals board, not the doors. You headed somewhere particular? I asked. She hesitated. Anywhere that's not here. Name was Rosa. Said it softly like it might break. I bought 2 hot dogs and unfolded my legal pad. 3 steps, I said. 1, we get you on a bus with your papers in your pocket. 2, we call the shelter that actually answers phones after 5. 3, we drop a note where he can't twist it. Do not contact. Certified mail. That stamp is louder than a shout. She blinked. Not a crier, just calculating. I like calculators. We copied her ID at the newsstand, sealed cash in a zipper pouch, and wrote the courthouse address on the back of her hand. I added a cheap flip phone and 10 minutes. Prepaid. If it rings and you don't like the voice, drop it in a trash can. The coach hissed. I walked Rosa to the steps. She gripped my forearm once, quick and hard. Why are you doing this? Because a woman did it for me once, I said. That wasn't poetry. It was the ledger as I kept it. The bus swallowed her and taillights bowed out into afternoon traffic. I tore the next page off the pad and tucked it in my tote. Rosa Cleveland, wed 310. Folks pretend memory is enough. Memory isn't a file system. 2 days later, the AG investigator called. Their elder fraud line had a voicemail from Braden, flagpin, portable printer, now operating as Midland Heritage Solutions. Same pitch, new mascot. He liked bus stations too. Allison raised an eyebrow. You up for one more torque? I laced my boots and dialed the credit union. We set the table at the station cafe. June took a chessboard and pretended to lose. Caleb wore a baseball cap and practiced looking bored. Mark sat 2 stools over with a newspaper and a lens cap that wasn't a lens cap. Our notary friend nursed a root beer with her stamp in her purse. I brought a file labeled Stewardship, filled with blank paper and a single page I wanted Braden to read. A letter from the AG authorizing a controlled meet. He arrived on time, sleeves crisp, pin bright. Mrs. Talbot? He asked like we were old friends. Heard you help folks with transitions. He laid out the forms. Transfer on death, temporary guardianship, a sweet little warranty deed with jelly bean font. I slid him our letter. He read the seal, looked up, and found every camera lens in the station blinking at him like Christmas. To his credit, he didn't run. He sighed, closed his folder, and said,
Can we make this go away? We are, I said. Away to evidence. The cruiser rolled in quiet. Braden kept his tie straight while the officer read him his rights. Not a movie, just a door opening and 100 people pretending not to stare. June reset the chessboard. Caleb asked if he could keep the jelly bean deed. Only if you label it example, I said, and put it in don'ts. That night, we grilled chicken on Mark's dented Weber and watched the neighborhood breathe. Mrs. Green watered begonias like they owed her money. 2 houses down, the new tenant stapled our "verify before you sign" flyer to the utility closet. Allison brought out a shoebox. "What's this?" I asked. She set it on my lap.
Inside, the bone-handled knife Rob carried, the 2 photos I kept in the Go suitcase, and a fresh 3-pocket folder. Proof, money, exit. With tabs already labeled in June's blocky hand. "For you to retire?" Allison asked, half joke, half hope. "To shift jobs," I said. "Front desk to back bench. Let the kids run the copier." June saluted with a stapler. Caleb held up a metal labeler like a trophy. Mark flipped burgers and said nothing, which is how I like my men to agree with me. The verdict came a month later. Delroy pled to falsification and record tampering. The court wiped the liens and cut checks out of his maintenance premiums to folks he'd skimmed. Braden's charges crawled through their own pipeline. I stopped watching the docket after the 3rd continuance and hung a new sign at the clinic. No signatures in hallways. Bank desks only. I made one last trip to the recorder. The clerk saw me and reached for coffee. "What's this one?" "No crisis," I said, sliding a thank you card with a grocery gift card tucked inside. "Just closing a file." She smiled like she hadn't been thanked in a year and stamped the card envelope out of habit. On a Sunday, we drove to the state line and threw a handful of wildflower seed into a ditch Rob used to pull over at when the shocks were hot and the sky was big. I said his name, then said Trevor's, because saying names keeps people from being nothing but court numbers and reports. I didn't sermonize. I just checked the map, folded it twice, and put it back where maps go. So here's my final entry, tidy and useful. I'm not the hero. Paper is. Locks are. Timelines are. You want revenge? Put your rage into forms that don't expire and procedures that don't care how charming a liar sounds. Teach the girls to copy both sides of an ID. Teach the boys to ask where the camera is before they sign. Keep one tote by the door with socks, pills, bus schedule, and enough cash to reach the next bright lobby. Keep your porch light coded. 2 flashes for okay, 3 for help. And when a stranger sits at gate 6 with a bruised mouth and a dying phone, buy 2 hot dogs and write 3 steps on a napkin under fluorescence where the light is honest. The rest? Hand off. June knows the clerks by name. Caleb can fill out an escrow form without smudging the seal. Allison carries a pen that never runs dry. I keep the ledger, dates, outcomes, who needs a ride. I mend hems, oil squeaky hinges, and take the Tuesday shift unless my knees argue. If you're reading this because the ground opened under your kitchen, listen close. Leave clean. File fast. Meet under cameras. Torque it steady. Quick snaps bolts.